what I want to talk about today, and I might share my screen, is the aftermath of the shooting on Memorial Drive in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The aftermath. So basically, this is what happened. This is almost in some levels a chronological order. So first of all, DSA member Mike Connolly, Democratic Socialist of America, gets in front of a building and he's saying, he's basically blaming the gun for the problem. We need stricter gun laws, as if stricter gun laws is going to prevent a career convicted criminal from getting one. Let's be honest here. Everybody knows that's not the case. And let's also be honest with ourselves here and not color our language and just call it what it is. But this state has allowed hundreds of thousands of people come here that shouldn't be here from across the border, that brought weapons, fentanyl, and everything in between. Right? That's what happened. They're so concerned about gun laws. However, they want to strip the law-abiding citizens from either A, getting a weapon, or B, making the barrier to entry to get a weapon even harder. However, the criminals will still have their black market to get their weapons. That's the way that it goes. So first of all, that's what happened with Mike Connolly. Now, moving forward, this is what happens next. Cambridge City Council votes 5-2 to disable racist ShotSpotter 8 days after paroled felons sprayed Memorial Drive with 60 rounds. So basically what happened here, I'm bringing you into, what I've been looking at, right? I saved all of these articles the other day, and this is what's going on. So ShotSpotter, I'll actually show you what it looks like. ShotSpotter is this. What it does is it's listening for gunshots. And if it hears a gunshot, it alerts the police. It's as simple as that. Now, you could get down into the methodology of where they're being placed. And I think that this is part of the problem, at least for the progressives inside of Cambridge. So I don't even need to watch all the videos to know what their talking points are. But there's probably ShotSpotter in dense areas of either crime or potential gun violence. And what they're more than likely, maybe we'll watch a couple, what they're more than likely trying to do is say that ShotSpotter is in areas where, certain communities of certain types of people, it's picking up their gun violence. And this is inherently racist. It shouldn't be here. So my counter argument to that is are you going to open a restaurant in the middle of the damn desert? No, you're going to put a device in a high volume area to try to save lives. That's what this was intended for. But what happens in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just so you understand what's going on if you're watching from another area, Cambridge, Massachusetts has these parasites, right? There's only maybe 3 to 5, maybe more because it is Cambridge, but I'm trying to give them a pass. Let's say it's 3 to 5%. They are the loudest people in the room. They are the loudest people on social media. And what they like to do is they like to control the other 95% of Cambridge. This happens often in Massachusetts. There's other areas and municipalities and cities that have to deal with these people as well. It's an unfortunate reality, but they are the decision makers for the other 90 to 95+% of the residents. If I were to go door knocking, this would be a funny video, by the way, but I'd probably get absolutely, something would happen to me. That's take it from there. I bet if I went to go door knocking on every single door inside of Cambridge, right? And I said, hey, we're coming up with a system that we're going to install that's going to attempt to save lives because it's going to pick up gunshots. The device is listening for gunshots and will immediately alert the police, okay? I'm willing to bet that 9 out of 10 people would be in agreement to that because clearly people want to have safe streets. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, surveillance. Nobody likes surveillance. I don't like surveillance. I don't want to be put under a microscope all the time and have things, listening to conversations. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think ShotSpotter is sending data back to, I think this was a DHS project. I think what Cambridge was trying to say is that in terms of Cambridge, let me pull this one up real quick. I pulled it up really quickly before here we go. This is what I looked at. These are the main concerns. Privacy. I could get, let's be honest, let's be fair. I'm concerned with privacy too, right? I don't want to have more levels of surveillance on top of me. Here's the other one, false positive. I 100% agree. Could there be a balloon that pops? Could there be a car tire that explodes? Could there be a firework that goes off? And then the resources from the police department, the police show up and there's a balloon sitting on the ground or a tire on the ground, right? Absolutely. But is it worth spending those resources? Look at it this way. Is it worth spending those resources in order to have safer streets? I think that is a cost. If you were to do a cost analysis on this, I think that most people would say yes. A cost analysis that I wouldn't agree with is spending $500 billion to try to insulate our entire state with solar panels and wind turbines, okay? Without knowing the outcome. Okay, that's the difference between progressive. You could even say, you know what? You could even say ShotSpotter is a progressive technology, right? We're trying to preemptively, with new technology, try to save lives. But this is the type of progress that these people don't like to see because they like to put labels on things. That's the honest to God truth. They want to put labels on things. So, over-policing claims of, this is the big one, over-policing claims of disparate impact on specific neighborhoods. They're not going to put the devices in areas where there's no gunfire, okay? They're not going to put the damn thing in the middle of the ocean, for God's sakes. They're not going to do that. Of course, they're going to put it in a high-volume area. Like, you're not going to do it. Like, why else wouldn't you want to save the lives of people in that area? And then federal data sharing. Fears that ShotSpotter alerts could land in the hands of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This thing doesn't have eyeballs. Like, I mean, it doesn't have eyeballs. Like, that's basically it. Now, you could go, I mean, let's be fair. I could go a little bit deeper there and dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, maybe most of the gunshots in the neighborhood that it's in is from a certain subsection of people. And then data gets shared from ShotSpotter to DHS or ICE. They figure out who's being arrested there. Like, obviously, they know who's being arrested there because the police are showing up. And then you could have DHS or ICE coming to arrest criminals, okay? They just don't want criminals arrested. That's basically what this boils down to, all right? That's basically it. And here's the other key piece of information. Here's the biggest problem that I see of all. The ACLU, I will almost guarantee you, had a hand in this. They have a hand in everything in Massachusetts. It's very unfortunate, but the ACLU drives a lot of what is happening on social issues inside of Massachusetts. They have a stranglehold on Massachusetts. They're very problematic, okay? But think of it this way. I want to give you what I would say is a good analogy, at least I hope it is, in order to understand why these people, let me show you where we at here. People like this, people like this.
I think importantly, as an
like
Asian
this,
American, I
people like
voiced my
this, people like this, people like this. There's another people like this,
2320,
people like this. What they don't want to do is they don't want a label put on themselves, okay? So, for instance, if the ACLU or somebody in politics or whatever says, you know what? You know, when you really boil it down and you look at the data of ShotSpotter, they're putting this in, neighborhoods that have a lot of crime. These neighborhoods have a lot of crime committed by certain types of people. I could directly correlate that to being racist because they're putting it in areas where they want to pick up on crime, and then police are targeting people inside of these neighborhoods that may not look like you and I, right? That's their argument. It's the same thing that happened in Minnesota, okay? In Minnesota, they let people that came from Somalia commit all different types of fraud amongst people that look like me too, by the way. They had people commit all types of fraud because they were scared to get a label put on themselves. So the politicians just let it slide. That's the same thing that's happening here. They would rather sacrifice the citizens that ShotSpotter could potentially protect because somebody probably put a label on the damn thing. That's the honest to God truth. It's as simple as that. And I understand you could use data and this, that, or the other thing to come up with a methodology or a correlation that, okay, it's in this neighborhood, it's not in that neighborhood, but that neighborhood over here doesn't have any crime. This neighborhood has crime and it's being committed by these types of people. don't you think that even the people inside of that neighborhood wants the crime to go down? I mean, God, is it really that complicated? No, it's not. Let's watch this one really quickly. I like this guy. He's talked about debanking before in Elizabeth Warren.
So ShotSpotter is an older system that works very well. It's deployed in many cities. And what it is, totally different system. What it is they put these precision microphones on top of rooftops all over the city. And then when a gunshot goes off, they're able to instantly triangulate that a gunshot has gone off and specifically where the gunshot went off. This has two big benefits. Benefit number one is you have a better chance of catching the perpetrator because you can instantly respond to the gunshot. You don't have to wait for somebody to call it in, or if somebody calls it in. Number two, if somebody's been shot and they're bleeding in the street, you can immediately roll the ambulance to the location and you can save lives. And so historically it's considered a double win. Chicago got so wrapped up on these political issues that they also...
So this is what happened. I'm sorry to pause the video. It started in Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson has an approval rating that's in like the single digits. This guy is an absolute nitwit, okay? He does not know what's going on. So Chicago set the precedent. You need to remember something here. Chicago set the precedent. And then what ends up happening is it's like a virus, right? It spreads to other progressive areas. And you need to remember this. Now, I know this is Cambridge. It's not Boston. But Mayor Wu, Brandon Johnson, Karen Bass, Zoran Mamdani, plus another two more that I can't even remember. They're all part of this, like, they're forming a coalition is basically what's happening. So what you're going to see is you're going to see repeat policy or lack thereof in these specific areas because these people are detached from reality. That's what this boils down to. They are completely detached from reality and they are making decisions on behalf of, like, let's say, the bottom percentage of the population, and then the top percentage of the population has to deal with all their bad decision making. That's the honest to God truth.
Not only do they not have flock, they also turned off their ShotSpotter system voluntarily. And so people now get shot in Chicago and they bleed out on the street and nobody knows and nobody cares.
And what is the argument that they make?
That it is so I would say there's maybe two arguments. There's the civil libertarian argument, which is all around surveillance and abuse and control and all these things. And like I say, I think that's a very legitimate argument. And then I would say there's like the woke argument, right? Which is that the argument goes the American criminal justice system is clearly biased in favor of some demographic groups and against other demographic groups. And if you have automated systems like ShotSpotter or Flock by the same thing comes up with like traffic cameras that automatically give out speeding tickets.
That's coming here too, by the way.
That those will disproportionately affect disadvantaged people in society and disadvantaged groups, and so therefore they are racist. They are racist technologies enforcing a racist system.
Basically, the people that are committing, but he's trying to say here is that the majority of the people that are committing the crime are getting arrested because of the surveillance of the systems. So inherently, the systems are racist because the people that are committing the crimes don't look like me. That's basically the argument. That is a harder argument, in my opinion. Like if it were me, and I were one of these people in Cambridge that wanted to get in my opinion, that is a harder argument. And I think they got rid of ShotSpotter, by the way. I'm almost 90% sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost 90% sure. I think the better argument is surveillance, right? I think the better argument is well, maybe not, because here, I'm sorry, I'm thinking and talking at the same time. So what I was going to say is like surveillance is it's something that exists. It has microphones, right? That's something that is inherently proven that it has these microphones and all these other things. But you see, I guess when you go to the other, let's call it what this gentleman said, the woke side of it, where it's racist, I feel like that there's so much gray area there to play with that people don't know what to do, right? And then again, to reaffirm my previous argument, nobody wants to have that label put on them. So instead of saving lives, they would rather not be called racist. You see what I'm saying? So because it's such a big gray area, that's basically what's happening.
The problem with that argument is the victims of violent crime are disproportionately also likely to be from those same disadvantaged groups. And so...
Woke politics are really fun.
Yes.
The other problem with a lot of this is there's a large chunk of people that are going to immediately think that even this mass shooting was organized by Flock so that Flock could get reinstated in Austin to bring in the surveillance state.
So he makes a good argument there. Like that is something to consider, where these companies are artificially sending people like agitators, right? Like paid agitators to go and shoot around, like even if they're not shooting people, just like a mass shooting, somebody's just shooting up at the sky in order to implement more surveillance systems. So he does make a good argument there.
Like this,
but that's not what these people are arguing. Okay, that's not what these people are arguing.
I guarantee you, 100%. There's a group of people listening to this right now saying, "Oh, Andreessen's a shill. Rogan's shilling for Flock. This is what they're doing. They're trying to get the mass surveillance." This is automatically when there's a situation like this, any kind of a mass shooting, people think it's a false flag. This is where we're at. How Chicago organizers managed to rid the city of ShotSpotter.
Yeah, so it must have. When is this article from? December 2nd of 2024. So it must have started. That's why I said these things spread like a disease. So it probably started in Chicago. And God bless you guys out in Chicago. I've been to Chicago. God bless you guys. You got a lot you're dealing with there. And then it ends up infecting other areas. That's essentially what happens. But again, I'm not in disagreement in terms of like surveillance, okay? Surveillance is a problem. Now, on to the next, of course, again, this is Mike Connolly, Democratic Socialists of America. This is the one that I want to show you, okay? So far, let me catch you up to speed here. So first of all, we talked about ShotSpotter. Actually, no, we started with Mike Connolly getting and blaming the guns. That was the first thing. The second thing, I know this is kind of like a live, but this is all I had time to do today. So I apologize if this is kind of like unprofessional or whatever. But the next phase was the ShotSpotter debate, okay? This is all from one shooting, okay? All from this guy on Memorial Drive, Tyler Brown, doing a shooting. Then we had Governor Healy, believe it or not. Now, again, I'll be fair. I'm fair. Governor Healy wanted to nominate, this is what it says, Maura Healey, nominee who has both prosecutorial and criminal defense experience following last week's mass shooting in Cambridge and the early release of several convicted murderers by the state's parole board. So she wanted to, and by the way, Tim Dunn, I like Tim Dunn a lot. I met him before. He's a great guy. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but I will tell you this much, Tim. I wouldn't be able to do this because listening to these people speak and, not being able, it would be hard for me, okay? Because these people talk like, they're completely out of their minds. So kudos to you on getting these interviews. I hope you don't mind me sharing them. Again, Tim Dunn works for the Boston Herald. I'm just itemizing the timeline of what happened. So Maura Healey decided that we need somebody that's a prosecutor on the parole board. These people, these nitwits decided, oh, no. We don't need somebody with prosecutorial experience. We need a social worker instead. Because just watch I watched this last night.
I've been a strong advocate. We need people with social science backgrounds. Let's look at the 6 members of the parole board. Who are they?
Nobody is. Forget it.
Forensic psychologist, Dr. Charlene Bonner. Great appointment. Sarah Coughlin, social worker, experience in drug and alcohol abuse. What about the others? Now, let me finish. The others. I believe we need more people with that type of background. That's most of the people in prison today.
I know what you're
are drug issues and alcohol. We need more rehabilitation. We need more resources. I've voted for prosecutors. I've voted, I think everyone in this room has voted for prosecutors for the parole board. I know.
Listen, a prosecutor on the parole board could have stopped what is happening on the parole board currently, okay? The more, I understand you, I'm not debating the fact that you might want social workers, you might want psychiatrists, or you might want this, you might want that. I think a healthy mix is good, right? 110%. But the fact remains, they want more of it, is what I'm trying to say. They want more of the same, is what I'm trying to say. So if you want more of the same, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get more of the same.
No, I have. But we need more social science people on that parole board.
So there was just a massive shooting in Cambridge on Memorial Drive. There's a few examples that Councilor Ferreira brought up. How does a psychologist prevent someone from being released early. I mean, isn't that a concern that is on the governor's mind, on the lieutenant governor's mind, on residents' mind? Do you feel silly kind of saying that there's a forensic guy on the board?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
So let's be clear. Let's get the facts right. Let's get the facts right. 2 members of the parole board voted to release this person. Not Dr. Bonner, not Sarah Coughlin. Okay? Not those people. What do I think went wrong in this situation? The judge started. Okay?
He's right.
The prosecutor was looking for a 10-year sentence. The judge gave this individual a 5 to 7 year sentence. He's done about 4 years. He would have been out in a year and a half anyway. And then who else, in my opinion?
So he would have been out anyways.
You know what's crazy though? Like, while you're in there, and I don't know everything, I'm genuinely asking, and I'll even reply to the comments if you comment on this. Like, he's saying he was going to get out a year and a half anyway. Here's the thing that I just caught. He's saying that he was going to get it out in a year and a half anyway. So he got released early from the parole board, right? That's what happened. So by saying he's going to get out a year and a half early, and you need more, let's say psychiatrists and social workers and all of these other things, like wouldn't in that same argument, if you want those things, don't they have access to those things? Am I wrong? Don't they have access to some of those things in prison? Or if this guy was, a danger to himself and society, was he even at the right facility to get? And again, I'm not advocating for this. I'm just talking generally, right? Like, in one hand, he's saying, oh, he would have got out in a year and a half anyway, on one hand. But on the other hand, he's trying to argue for more social workers and all the other things. Couldn't those people have helped him over that course of a year and a half? I'm not advocating for this, right? I'm just saying in general, it doesn't make sense to me.
That makes it okay that he got such a light.
I'm not saying that.
Early,
of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Of course not. But I'm saying if we had more people, look at the 2 people who released him. Dr. Bonner didn't vote on that. Sarah Coughlin didn't vote for this guy. They didn't vote for him. They didn't vote at all. But I think we need more people with social science backgrounds. Rehabilitation is important. That's important. You need more people with mental health experience. And this never would have happened. And what happened at McLean Hospital? They released him. Why?
That's exactly what I said, and people got furious that I said that. You want to know why I said that? You really want to know why I said that? Because if I didn't say that, then it wouldn't be a talking point inside of the public space. So sometimes you have to say these things and be as as honest as humanly possible, and try to bring them as a talking point so people could at least talk about it. You have to do that. That's why you see, now I'm not saying this guy watched my video or not. It doesn't really matter. But he's right. They let him out too. So you have a chain of command here between the judge, between the parole board, between the hospital, right? And you could even throw in his parole officer there that tried to apparently do the best that he possibly can and warn the police. Okay. So I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but there was this isn't random, right? Like if it was one thing and this guy just, got out and did whatever, but it was a whole chain of command that was a failure, is what I'm trying to say. The entire chain of command. And yes, you could say that this was an anomaly, but after you have so many anomalies, it's no longer an anomaly, is what I'm trying to say.
Why'd they release him so early? There's a lot of blame to go around.
Correct.
But it's not about blame. We have to fix the system.
Correct.
I voted for prosecutors before. I'll vote for them.
There's another one too. Hold on. This one. Now this woman, this was another Tim Dunn one. One member of Massachusetts Governor Council, Mara Dolan, says she rejected a nominee with prosecutorial experience because he could not guarantee that he would not go too far in just ensuring public safety. Watch this.
With the nominee himself. There were reasons to vote for him, but he did not make the case that he would not go too far, that in ensuring the public safety, that people would not be released on parole who should be released on parole. So I'm confident that moving forward we'll find someone who has that.
So she's basically saying a complete inversion of logic. Listen to this again.
The reason that I didn't vote for him lies with the nominee himself. there were reasons to vote for him, but he did not make the case that he would not go too far.
He wouldn't make the case that he wouldn't go too far. Okay.
In ensuring the public safety, that people would not be released on parole who should.
Ensuring public safety of the people that should be released on parole that aren't being released on parole. So basically what she's saying, in order to have public safety, you need to release more criminals, period. That's what she's saying.
Be released. So I'm confident that moving forward we'll find someone who has that.
Should Tyler Brown have been released on parole?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and so do you think adding a prosecutor would help try to mend those votes?
It depends upon the prosecutor.
Okay, so would you be open to a different prosecutor?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, credit where credit is due. So Maura Healey did try doing so, whether it was like, let's just be fair, right? Be like, you know, let's be real here. Like, she tried to do something, I think, but it could have been for politics. Sure, of course, right? But if it was a win is a win, no matter who it is. But these people, and I'm not giving a win to Maura Healey, by the way. I'm just saying in a general aspect here, like, something tried to get done. They tried to get a prosecutor on the parole board, and it got shot down, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, Governor Healey's parole board missed warning sign on Tyler Brown. Now, she did appoint a lot of people on this parole board originally. So what she tried to do is more than likely correct the mistake that happened here. These shouldn't happen at all, right? We spend so much time, money, and effort on all of these things, only to have somebody in the middle of the damn street with a gun. And again, the judge, the parole board, the hospital. That is the line items that went down. I think that somebody needs to do a further investigation, not into this guy per se, but the processes, right? The process needs to be cleaned up. But anyway, that's all I got. I'm sorry for the very, very long video. But that's it. It's just really crazy to me how you could have a mass shooter inside of a state, inside of a city, and all of a sudden, the gun is to blame, right? Think about it this way, really. Think about it this way. The gun is to blame, number one. Number two, ShotSpotter is a problem, right? ShotSpotter is racist. Number three, we don't want more prosecutors on the parole board. We need more social workers and psychiatrists. You see where I'm going with this? That's what happened. If this happened anywhere else, I don't think that I think it would have been a complete completely flipped around, right? That's probably what would have happened. I think that gun laws for citizens wouldn't be as strict, okay? Number two, ShotSpotter would be working as intended, and it would be, outside of the scope of the surveillance and everything like that. I don't even know about that. I got to look that up. But somebody do some research for me and see if the ACLU was involved. I don't even need to look it up. I'll almost guarantee you the ACLU was involved. Maybe not in Massachusetts, but in general somewhere. I'll almost guarantee you that. I'd be shocked if they weren't. And number three, they tried to get a prosecutor on the parole board that's probably more strict than a social worker because they're prosecutors, right? And that got denied. So if that was in another state, there would be the prosecutor. That's the point I'm trying to make. Complete inversion. Imagine the family members of the people, or even the people that were around that didn't get hit with a bullet. Like, imagine how these people feel to see this happen, right? Like, imagine how they feel to know that their city and their state doesn't have their best interests in mind, right? They have the complete opposite interests in mind. That's why I talk about these issues the way that I do. And the reason that I talk about these issues the way that I do is because I want you to talk about these issues in the same way. Maybe not identical to me, but I want to make it to the point where it's okay to criticize these things and the way these processes are being handled. Because again, you saw at this parole board thing, everybody is in there patting themselves on the back, agreeing with each other upon what they need, right? That's not how you need some levels of critical thinking and reason, and not more emotion and sympathy inside of the scope of these things. Emotion and sympathy is fine, but you also need the other end of the spectrum, is what I'm trying to say. You could have a healthy mix of the two, but the problem is they don't want that mix. That is the reality of Massachusetts today. And honestly, I don't think it's the best representation. I was somewhere today, and somebody that I know considered Massachusetts to be a more purple state. And when I was sitting there thinking to myself, and I've been kind of teetering on this idea too, with 64 or 65% are independent, certain other percentage are Republican, smaller portion, and then, another portion is Democrat. Like, are the lawmakers here and the politicians here, are they really representing what's in everybody's best interest? Like, that's the way that I feel, right? And I really want the general public to feel that way too. Like, are they really, I'm not saying everything needs to go from one extreme to the other, right? Like, nobody is saying that, but there at least needs to be some talks around these issues, and some good levels of problem solving here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's what needs to happen. I'm not saying to go from, one extreme to the other, but what I am saying is that they should try to cater to the majority of the state, and not a small fraction of the state. I don't know, man. I have a lot of people that watch this channel that are, Democrats, independents, and Republicans. We have a healthy mix of all of them. And I talk to a lot of these people as well, and even politicians with, on both sides of the aisle. And like, these aren't even like what we're talking about here. We're not even necessarily talking about partisan issues. Crime affects everybody. You know what I mean? Crime affects everybody. High taxes affects everybody. High energy bills affects everybody. But for some reason, I just can't make enough videos to get it through their heads that, like, hey, maybe we should try doing something different. And I mean, I'm not the be all end all here, but at least I want to bring these talking points and talk about them the way that I do. You don't have to be as, blunt as I am per se, but at least have the ability to have these conversations with people, because I really truly think that most people inside of the state don't feel like they're being represented to the best of their abilities. Of course, the ideological warriors that are, on board with everything that this Democratic platform wants to do, of course, they're going to be in agreement to that. But remember, 65% of the state is independent. Okay. And I think what happens here, and I've talked about this before briefly, it's kind of like a poison where, if you're independent, you have other friends that are in the circle of being independent, and you have one friend that decides to vote, Democrat down the board. What ends up happening here, this is like somewhat of the middle ground problem, right? It ends up being used as like socially, you kind of get pigeonholed sometimes into doing the same thing. I think this happens socially, right? I think this happens where, your friends are doing something, and all of a sudden, if you don't do that same exact thing, or you don't agree with them on doing the same exact thing, then you're either not going to vote, you're going to vote down the same way that your friends are voting, right? And I'm willing to bet that happens with a lot of independents here, but I'm also willing to bet behind the scenes, they also feel, maybe you guys are in the same boat where, like, you feel as though you aren't being represented in multiple capacities here. And just this incident on Memorial Drive just goes to show you the kind of like the intertwined dynamics of the way these people think. Forget about the act of what is of what led to this. Think about all of the things that are happening simultaneously, all at the same time, that just seem completely upside down. That's what I'm trying to say. That maybe I'm crazy, but that's the way that it looks to me. That is the way it looks to me. All right, I made this video long enough. I'm sorry. You don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm so sorry, but I had a lot to say about this, all right, because I've obviously been thinking about it. So anyway, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. A lot of people have been subscribing to the channel and watching the videos. I really, really appreciate it. And spread the word as best as you can. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to join. You don't have to buy anything. It's a blessing to have you people. I meet you guys out very often, and it's usually pretty good. Emails, text messages. I try to do my best to get in touch with you guys. So appreciate you guys staying on board with me. I don't get everything right. I don't always say the right thing. I get things wrong often. I don't pronounce things the right way. These are all truths, but this is it. This is it. This is just me sitting here being honest with you guys. So that's it. Have a good Memorial Day weekend, guys. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.